Hi guys, welcome to Alpha Developer. Today we're gonna be looking at how to make an API call within React. So as you know, the main purpose of React is to create applications, and in terms of application, they must have data coming from somewhere. So to make things easier, I've written the code for the API call. So what you can do is you can see the URL here, and I'm going to explain this and break this apart so you can see what's going on. So you can see the API URL that I'm loading up, and you can see that after the API call is made, it returns a JSON. Well, it returns the data, and then we convert that data into JSON. After it is converted to JSON, you have the data in JSON format, and then what you're doing is setting that data to the state variable there, books, which I've got there. Now, come the render method, what you have is you have an output here, which is a variable. Um, and what you're doing there is you're checking if the books has loaded and is not undefined, and the length is not equal to 0. Then is equal to 0, then that means the data is not loaded. If it is loaded, then you know that the data is there, and you can fetch the properties such as name and output. And I know what you're thinking. Uh, I do not understand any of this. Well, let's break it apart and let's start to take out code and kind of reverse engineer what's going on here. Okay, so you've got the component, React component there. Within the React component, you can see the beginning where it begins and ends. So you can see that's the beginning and the end. Within here, this part, you have variables, and you can see this is a variable and this is a method. So this is a procedure in a way within the component. So what you have is that one, it begins there and ends here. So if you think about this method is called componentDidMount. And within there, what it's doing is calling a function called fetch. The fetch function is basically a request and response. So it goes to the internet, gets the API, the data, it then returns that API, and we convert that into a JSON. So then you go, okay, after you get the data, then do what? What do you want me to do next? So they think of that as another function. So, okay, then it asks you, okay, tell me what you want to do with that data. So here you've got the res. So that's basically what the object it returns. And then this is what you can convert that. So apply a function. So that's a lambda expression. Don't worry about any of this because that's just telling it, take that data, do this with it. So take that, convert it into JSON. After you've done that, you can add another then and say, right, after you've got the data in JSON format, convert, do the following to it, basically set the state object to the data. So the state variable there is what stores the data that we get, and you can see it's a type array. And what you can't just simply do this in React, so you can't just put the variable name and say do this. For example, you can't for example do this state equals sorry, books equals data. because that's incorrect. That it doesn't know what that is. While with this one, it knows it's a property. So it will basically say that books it doesn't exist. It's not a defined variable. And you have to access these variables using the setState method of the this class. So basically this is a class and you're accessing that method of it. And that's the method, and that's the only way, the only one and only way to access this. So don't bother doing things like, as you can see here, you can't do show the output as books 0, so the first variable in the array, and you can't do this. That's invalid. That's not going to work. So the only way to get to that data is you again put the variable name, but what you do is set this dot state, then you do books dot 0, because the variable can only be accessed via the state object. So it becomes a property of the class. So the state is the object that has books. It's not books or this dot books, it's the state. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies why we're using this dot set state, because you can't do books equals data. You have to do this dot set state books is equal to data, and that's where you use the the colon here to access that. So basically define set this books as the data. Okay, so the next issue that I want to touch on is the render method. So basically what this does is componentDidMount. That's a method that is set by React. And what it does, it gets called, as you can see here, immediately after the component is mounted. So the general principle is in the React community, you always put API calls within here where you're fetching data. And that, I won't go into detail, but that just means that it won't keep on fetching the data every time page renders in a way. So let's say you change another variable and it won't actually reload the data again and again. For example, if you had another variable here, for example, variable test, and you said it had a value of test in here, later on you set that test variable as something else, then what it will do instead is, if you did not put this code component, the API call within this component did mount, it will keep running this again and again every time this changes. But that's silly, because that's like, why would you want to get the API call again and again? Why would you want to run that again and again when you're actually just changing this test variable, which has nothing to do with getting the data of the books? So that's why you put it in this component now. So of course I could put it in this load, and make a call to it every time. But of course, what that will do is that will run this. If I make that method call somewhere in here, that will run this again and again and again. But if I put it in this method, which is a fixed method decided by React, then it will only load once when the component is displayed on the page. So that's the advantage of that. So I hope that explains it. Let me know in the comments if you need more clarifications. So the next method is, you've got the render method. So in this method, what you can do is you've got a return bit, which is basically the final output that gets sent to the browser. So that gets sent or displays in the browser from the JavaScript. So within this method, again, just think of it as a method just like that one. So it's part of the class. And each component has a render method in it. So with this render method, we usually display things. And if you want to put any kind of validation or you want to do some more JavaScript code, you always put it before the return statement. So every method usually has a return statement. So in this instance, if it's returning something, then what you want to do is put the final return here. So you can't, for example, put if all this, for example, you can't put it in the return method. That would be incorrect, and you can see it's coming up with error messages, and it's saying you can't put unreachable code, so it will actually never run this, and you're going to get errors. So what you do, if I undo that, what you have is I define a variable called output, and I am checking if the data from the books API has come back. And the reason I'm doing that is as you know, the data is being fetched on the internet. Depending on your internet speed or the internet speed of the user that you send this app to, it will vary. So sometimes it'll be on a mobile phone, internet's poor, you're going to get really low speeds. The data might be, 100 kb or, 200 kb, 300 kb, whatever. It will take some time to load up. And what you want to do is while it's loading, you don't want JavaScript to error. So you can see I'm checking if the books variable, does it return any data? Or is basically it's return data but it's 0. Then what we can say in this example, just as a, is data is not loaded. Otherwise, what you can say here is if the data is loaded, so there is some data, you can then access the this.state book 0 position name variable property there. Now, you might be wondering, well, why do this? What's the point of doing that? I thought you meant this would load the data and then send it on. Well, the render method runs before the data is loaded. And after the data is loaded, of course, it will rerun the render method. So at that point, it will check, has it got data? If it has, it will load it up. Now, you might be wondering, well, why don't so let's see how this works and then I can explain further. So I'll save this and I will go over to my browser and we can, I think I've got an error message somewhere. I've been changing something in here. So, oh, sorry, yes, I've got an error here. So let me just take that out. Okay, now you'll see when I click refresh for a brief second or two, it goes not loaded and it gets faster and faster because the data, of course, comes back faster. So the not loaded message appears. Now imagine my internet was really poor. That not loaded would appear there, so it would not error. And then afterwards, when the data is loaded, it will display the name of the book. So what you can do, and just to demonstrate this to you, if I didn't have this if statement, so let's just block this out. Okay, so I'm just gonna comment this way out. So toggle the line as comment, and you can now see if I were to access the set the output put equals this dot state dot books. I wanted to access the first element in the array, and then I put the property name. If I were to output this, what do you think is going to happen? Well, we'll find out. There you go. So if I refresh this, it says Failed to compile, output is not defined. Oh, that's because I've commented out too much. There you go. Okay, now we got a different error message. So you can see from here, it says cannot read property name of undefined. So what it's telling you there, this state books 0. So it knows books is there, but it's saying I can't read the name property of this element. So what are you basically talking about? Which property are you talking about? And the reason this has happened is the data has not loaded. The data has not loaded. That's the key thing. So JavaScript is trying to run this and is saying error, hold on, there's no name property. What are you talking about in effect? So the reason I put the if statement there is I am checking if the data is not undefined. So when I say the undefined, so I'm checking, is there anything there? If there is, then display the book property. And then it's not going to error. But if it's not there, then I don't error, basically set the output as not loaded message. So if I comment this back in, so toggle the comment, and I'll remove this line. And now if I save it and run, and you can see it's displayed not loaded. So I could basically there, uh, hold on, data is loading. So that's my message. And now it says there, hold on, data is loading. So then this gets called. So you might be wondering, well, how does it refresh this? How do they load up? How do they know, to change the message from a hold on, data is loading to that, to the book name? Well, that's the magic of this React component and the part of the whole React structure basically is React every time the state variables are changed, it will re-render, it will rerun the render method. So it will go, so this is how it will work. So it will open up the app, it will display this message because at first the book says basically null. But afterwards, when it does load up, before when you first load it, it will go and do this bit. And then after it's loaded the data within there, and the current message is that, it will say, oh, wait, I've got the data now. I'm going to set the books variable to this. So suddenly React realizes that it needs to redisplay. There's something changed in the properties, so I want to redisplay what it has. So it will run this again. It will run this method again, and it will this time go, books is undefined. No, actually, we have some data. So I'm going to just ignore this if statement and instead display this. And of course, then I've put that in the output and return output in here. So that's another reason. So why did I just return output? So you can do all your jiggery pokery there. So you can do all your magic of putting your normal code in there. And the output is just simple, nice variable that just basically returns whatever you have done in here. So it can be long pieces of code in here. But this as an example, I could just change this to uh, add in more stuff in here. Plus return the, I believe this one also has another property called or ISBN number. So with the book's ISBN number. So if I rerun this, there you go. That is ISBN number. And I can put the ISBN is that. There you go. And you see, you can add more and more stuff in here and it would return that. Of course, I could duplicate this. So if I wanted to, have another variable in there, var output 2, and if I put our output 2 in here, and I can just take the ISBN bit out from there, just leave it in this one, and now you'll see that Game of Thrones is there, the title, but nothing else is displayed. Is because I haven't actually put that in here. So if I put that in there, you'll see that it will display the same thing in here. So if I actually leave the space there you go. Or you can, I think you can do this, and I will take a literal. There you go. And I believe you can also do this. So if you want it on a second line, so again, I'm new to React, but let's give it a go while I'm doing this video. And you can see that, and then I can put that on there, paragraph tag, and I could put output there, and then I could put that there, put 2. Let's see if this works. I think this needs to be in there. This needs to be in there. And hopefully, there you go. It works. So you're putting everything in div there because it needs to have, you can't, I think you can't do this. It would be invalid. Yeah, failed to compile, as you can see here. So basically you have to have the div there. So that's one root element, and all your other bits can be in here. So you can even do, I think, list item, and then list item, list item, list item, and then there you go. So you can put all your other elements in here, and that's the output. So hopefully you will have enjoyed this video. As I say, just to summarize, you've got the component, you've got state variables there. You could put more variables in here. You've got the components affix method, but you put what you want in here. That will run only once before when the component is mounted, so not every time it re-renders. And then you can put your within the render method, you can put your magic bits here before the return statement, and then you will get your output here. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, like and subscribe, and of course I will try and make it as to the layman as easy as possible to explain this, and just going through what was going on in my head. So I'm literally just giving you what was in my head, what was my thinking. I didn't know how this worked. I didn't know how the render method linked in and all that. So being brand new to JavaScript and everything. So yeah, I mean, I had some experience of other languages, but brand new. So if you're coming from another language, hopefully you found this useful. The render method, the if statements, why we had to do this undefined test, put this message in. So yeah, like and subscribe, please, and this will just support me, and continue to encourage me to make more videos. So thank you, and I will see you next time. See you later. Enjoy your day. Bye.